Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you had a great 4th of July. Let's get started with this week's watch list, right? Overnight, you can see that we tried to break out of this line, which was acting as resistance, and it was a mega fail, and that's the reason you can see we kind of dumped. So at this point, there's actually only very two simple scenarios, right? Number one is that this is some sort of leading diagonal, right? With a wave two before you have a 3, 4, 5. And number two is structure honestly favors this scenario, right? But I wouldn't rule out number one either, that this was an ABC and we've started a mega wave three to the downside. So all in all, right, what I'm trying to say is that be prepared for both sides on this week's watch list, right? Just as much as again, this entire thing again looks like a wave one, right? So you could see some sort of wave two bounce, right? If you don't break over 3,800, 3,811, then you're likely to go down for a 3, 4, 5 like this. So again, even if today's bullish, you still can't rule out the fact that we could, push for that wave two. Ideally, if it stays below 3,830, then you dump all the way to 3,600 and 3,500. That's where the fifth wave would likely end, right? Alternatively, if you have a super bullish day, right? Again, breaking over this 3,857 is a good start, right? That's number one. And alternatively, there is another scenario where this is your A, this is your B. We come down for that C wave, right? Before it's done in this bigger ABC picture and we push higher. So that is a probable scenario where you break this low before you start heading higher, right? And you should watch out for that as well. I forgot to mention that this entire B wave, the way it's been chopping, right? It's reasonable that this is an A, this is a B. You come down for a C before you have the move higher. So as you can see, there's pretty much a multitude of scenarios, right? You got to keep watching out for traps on both sides. And yeah, those are the bull and bear probabilities. With that being said, I want to go over this week's watch list, right? You can see clearly that I have calls and puts, right? So no one's biased towards the side. As soon as it breaks the levels, you can definitely play either side. And if it starts to, show a fake breakout, then it's likely to not play out. So again, the first one I have for this week's watch list is actually Tesla. The reason for that, again, you can see a pretty smooth pattern, right? The stop line is holding as resistance, this bottom line is holding as support, right? So again, bigger picture, something else I want to point out is this pink trend line, which is holding as support, right? So you can see this bottom yellow line and the pink line are kind of submerging at this point, which is why you can see it's very clear that if Tesla, starts to break below 650, then this entire structure, like, is a triangle, right? It would be an ABCDE, and you're coming down for the fifth wave, I'd say, to 550. So if Tesla breaks below 650, right, you can play puts all the way to the downside because it would have broken the structure. Alternatively, right, if it's just going to make a higher low like this, you can wait for it to, break back above the size 680, which is where I have my trigger, 690, right, which is where I have my trigger, and you can play it to the top of this channel. Again, I could have said, play it all the way to the gap fill, but for now, I feel like it could, come here, right, to the top of this channel, and again, reverse down. So till it breaks, the more higher probability trade, as you can see, I have my alert at 758, 760, is if it breaks this channel, then it's going to have a massive move up. If you're trying to play within the channel, like you can see here, if it breaks 690, you can play to 760, right? And if it breaks below 650, you can play it to the downside. So those are the bull and bear versions on Tesla. Let's look at the next one, Shop. Shop is very similar, right? Same as Tesla, you can see it has a sideways channel, right? If this channel holds, if it starts to break over 32, 33, then you can play it all the way to 37, right? That's the bull version. And if it starts to break below this low at 30, then it's likely headed to 25. So same as Tesla, it has the sideways channel, and you could honestly play whichever way, is likely to break out. And again, that would coincide with whichever way this count is going to go, and that's the reason, right? The both bull and bear moves are pretty. Bear is more, I'd say, much more cleaner structure and prettier to play out versus the bull, right? But again, I definitely expect a lot of traps, which is why I'm I have both bull and bear, so no one gets caught on either side. Let's look at AMD. So AMD is, I'd say, a little more, the way it's sold off, right? That's the reason I feel like it's in its final leg, and I feel like it's a little more bullish compared to like Tesla or Shop because the structure is more clear, right? That's why I feel my gut says this morning's dump will be like, the final fifth wave dump, and then it's gonna have a massive move to the upside, right? That's what my gut says, but that doesn't mean you can see we have pretty much, right? If I've aligned this properly and trading view stops messing this up, you can see we're pretty much situated right on this trend line and we're attempting to break it, right? The scenario, as I mentioned, is this is the final dump before you have a massive relief bounce, right? That's what I think at least. But if the trend line is broken, then you will see, mega dumping. So you have to, again, we know this level, right? This level is support. It does have major support here. So again, if the support breaks on the daily chart, what I want to show you is, right, it has a gap to fill at 68.34, and it also has a gap to fill at 62. So again, if the bears do take over today, right, regardless of what my gut says, we have to be mindful that it can definitely, go fill these gaps. So yeah, that's also something I wanted to point out on AMD. So it can either just springboard like a rocket higher, right, in the next 2 weeks, or if it starts to break below, let's say 71, 72, then it's likely to come down to 63. So those are the bull and bear versions on AMD. Let's look at Apple. Apple honestly has been pretty easy to read because you can see the spots it's been getting rejected are on this trend line. It's just failing to get above. As you can see, this trend line has been acting as significant resistance, and this bottom channel has been acting as significant support. So for Apple, it's pretty simple. If you break over 140, then you have broken the structure. And as a result, Apple will likely rip higher, right? And if it starts to break below, let's say 135, then you'll likely come test the bottom trend line at 128. So Apple, honestly, the structure is pretty easy to read. For bulls, ideally wait for 140 to break to move higher, right? And for bears, if it starts to break below 135, then you're likely to test 128. So that's Apple, and the last one is Affirm. On Affirm, again, it's a pretty tight line, right? The 0.886 fib is the most important. As long as this level holds, right, Affirm can definitely start ripping higher, right, for that C wave. So I would, again, I have only calls over 18.6 because I would like to see it break over this resistance level that it's struggling at, right? If it starts to break over that, then it can go higher. The alternate is obviously if this resistance breaks, then it's likely, you can see bigger picture. This is the channel Affirm is in, right? It's likely probably going to come retest the bottom of this channel this way. So those are your bull and bear cases on Affirm, right? And that's it. I just have 5 tickers for this week's watch list because, like what bull and bear levels, like for everything is likely to be the same. And these are very liquid, right? And if you have smaller accounts, Apple, AMD, Affirm are cheap, right? If you can afford bigger tickers, you can play Tesla. So that's all I have for this week's watch list. Thank you. Have a great